Right, good evening everybody. Thank you. Welcome to the September Cabinet meeting. Fire alarm procedures. If the fire alarm is activated, vacate the offices via the stairs. Please do not use the lifts. Assemble in Hawley Square on the Green. Officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the chamber. Please switch off or turn to silent your mobile phones and do not make or receive calls while this meeting is in progress. Please note this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public. The meeting will also be recorded and subsequently broadcast on the internet. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? No. The following members have asked to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1. Item 5, Councillor Christian Bright, Councillor Fellows and Councillor Davis. Item 7, Councillor Rogers. Item 8, Councillor Rogers. Item 9, Councillor Bayford. Item 12, Councillor Davis. Item 14, Councillor Rogers. And item 15, Councillor Christian Bright. Are there any other members wishing to speak under 20.1?
Yes, please, Leader. I'd like to speak under item 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. Is that it? Thank you. Cabinet is all here, so there are no apologies. Does anyone have an interest to declare the items of business on the agenda this evening? Not seeing any, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. To approve the summary of recommendation decisions of the Cabinet meeting on the 27th of July. Copies attached to the agenda pack. I propose to take the minutes as read. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Yates. Do members agree? Agree. Thank you. Minutes of the extraordinary meeting. Approve the summary of recommendations and decisions of the extraordinary meeting held on the 10th of August. A copy is attached to the supplementary agenda pack. Propose to take the minutes as read. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Alban, thank you. Do members agree? Agree. Thank you. And we move on to item 5, which is the TDC and Parish and Town Council's collaboration report following the scrutiny panel review, which is me. In July 2022, the Overview and Scrutiny Panel commissioned the Collaborations Working Party to review how the Council could improve working relationships with parish and town councils for better service delivery for Thanet residents. The review reported its findings back to the ONS panel, who in turn recommended them to Cabinet. These findings, in the form of the Working Party's final report, are attached to Annex 1 to the report. Subsequently, the Council's corporate management team have looked at the recommendations from the Working Party and have raised no issues with any of the recommendations, and they've already nominated the Head of Neighbourhoods as the dedicated officer point for parishes contacting the Council. From my perspective as leader, I welcome the ideas put forward, and I thank the Working Party and the Scrutiny Panel for their time and efforts. We do have a variety of parish and town councils, and I can only see that working more closely with them can be beneficial both for councillors and residents. So I have 5 people to speak. I'm going to propose... Sorry. So I am going to propose the recommendations in the report highlighted in section 3 and covered in more detail in the review report attached as Annex 1. Do members agree? So I need a seconder first. Seconded by Councillor Yates, and then members could agree. Thank you. Okay, getting ahead of ourselves this evening. Councillor Bright.
Thank you, Leader. Good evening, everyone. So, for those who don't know me, as well as being the TDC ward councillor for Viking, I'm also a member and the current chair of Broadstairs and St Peter's Town Council. Over the summer, there were a lot of complaints about the conditions of the various gardens on the seafront, and Councillor Alban was kind enough to come and join me to inspect them. Now, as the conversation went on, he suddenly switched hats from the Cabinet portfolio holder to the chair of Ramsgate Council, and gave me some advice on what we might do to expedite some work. Fast forward to this Tuesday, and I was joined by several other members, several other double hatters on TDC and Broadstairs and St Peter's Town Council. where we met with TDC officers and came to an agreement on how we can work together to improve the gardens in Broadstairs. And that, for me, in a nutshell, is what this is all about. It's about town parish councils faced with challenges and sharing best practice to identify solutions and cooperating with the district council to bring those solutions to life. Everyone in this chamber is aware of the challenges faced by local authorities as a starve the budget by national government. And until we get a government with vision to invest in public services, it's up to us to take a more creative approach to problem solving. As the level of government closest to communities, our town and parish councils work closest with community groups, experts and volunteers who go above and beyond in their local communities every single day. And our willingness to collaborate with town and parish councils is going to be key to unlocking the talent and enthusiasm and goodwill of all those across Thanet and provide a springboard for creative thinking and getting things done. I'm therefore really supportive and really grateful to the overview and scrutiny panel from the last administration and to the officers for this great report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. I don't think I need to comment on that. I'm sure I agree with you. Councillor Fellows.
Thank you, Leader. I'm speaking this evening not just as the Chair of Scrutiny, but also as a Parish Councillor, a role, I must add, that I take equally as seriously as my TDC roles. This excellent review was led by your very own Councillor Curry and has the ability to become the blueprint for working partnerships never seen here in Thanet between councils of all levels. I think the spirit and direction of the review is first class. We give thanks to our town and parish clerks and or chairs who gave up their time and thoughts when putting this review together, and we're encouraged that all town and parish councils are willing to get stuck in and take on more tasks in their areas. But this does have to come with some support, be it financial or administrative. I think now is the time to give town and parish councils more autonomy they so long for, to enable them to become even bigger powerhouses of local representation than they already are. This review will also lead to give clarity to residents who is responsible for who and what in their areas. Also, the recommendations in this review have been agreed by all senior officers, and I hope the Cabinet will agree to them too. This will inevitably lead to further recommendations coming forward in the future, which can only make our areas better for our residents. We hope that Margate Town gets its own town council soon. And lastly, I'd like to add thanks to the officers from Democratic Services for putting their help in when putting this excellent review together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fellows. Again, I don't think there's too much I need to add to that, except to say perhaps that this administration is fully supportive of Margate having its own town council, and I think in terms of what we're proposing here, it clearly makes a lot of sense, because having one area which isn't parished clearly isn't ideal if we're going to work more closely with our town and parish councils, which is certainly something that I'm keen on. Thanks for that. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Leader. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to just support what my colleagues have said about this, a superb report and a very, very good desired outcome. I'd like to highlight the fact that with certain departments we need to address it, and that isn't there at the moment, because we have had, my colleague Councillor Rogers and I in Cliffsend have had numerous issues recently, particularly with one department, and we are fairly clogged with people requesting assistance from the parish council because they're being ignored, and it's past the deadlines on some issues. I understand this is being reviewed, but I think it's really important because they are very, very keen to collaborate with us, but if they're being ignored by officers and told we don't answer you, that's obviously not acceptable. With regard to any financial implications, we had excellent training earlier this year when we were all elected, and I'd like to propose that that training is extended at the same time as it's done here to members of the parish councils and town councils, because that would have minimal financial implication, but would mean that there was joined up thinking and a standard, if you like, of training across the different councils, because there is variation there. But again, I welcome this report and thank you all for excellent work.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Davis. I think there are opportunities for shared training sessions. We've talked about that in the past in respect of planning in particular, because obviously the parishes and towns are consultees on the planning process, and it would make sense that they have the same level of knowledge insofar as we can achieve that through the training session. I'm sure there are other opportunities. If there are any particular issues that Cliffs End Parish Council wants to bring to my attention, I'll be happy to look at them. Not that I have a particular interest in Cliffs End, but obviously that, you know, but that's true generally. You know, if people do find that the system doesn't work, then come and talk to Cabinet, and we'll do our best to assist. Thank you. Councillor Garner.
Thank you. Yeah, we also welcome this report and the recommendations contained within it, which are both sensible and practical. We think it's important in the current difficult times to look at how the different tiers of local government can best work together, while being mindful, with our district councillor hats on, that we don't see parish council and town councils as cash cows because of their flexibility with the precept. One particular good example of how collaborative working between the councils can improve things for residents is the local litter forums, currently being expanded across the district, using a model set up in Ramsgate by, among others, my colleague Councillor Austin and Neil Jones from TDC in 2018. I do have a couple of questions. Firstly, related to litter forums, can we make sure that local councillors are informed about changes happening in their wards before they happen, so that they can help with communication to residents? An example from last week, the dog poo bins were removed from a park in my ward last week, causing an amount of upset among some residents. If we'd have been told about this beforehand, I could have explained the reasoning behind it to residents, and that would have lessened some of the fallout. Secondly, can you let us know when the other overview and scrutiny report from the Coastal Waste Working Group will be published? Thank you.
I think that we have to be a little bit careful in terms of requiring every operational decision to be notified to ward councillors. I don't know, Mr Humber, do you want to comment on the particular issue of bins being removed and whether that's feasible?
Yes, thank you, Leader. So we are at the moment looking at the number of bins district-wide. Some of the dog poo bins have been removed, and where that's the case, an assessment is made of whether there's a bin nearby, whether the bin is being used. We've got data on that now, on how much bins are being used, and an assessment of how, you know, of that need. Where there is a need and there isn't a street bin nearby, then a bin will be put back in its place. As for alerting, certainly if it's sort of possible operationally, you know, if it's a planned removal of a bin, then yes, we'll certainly do our best to tell ward members about that. Sometimes just operational need, if something's damaged or broken or needs removing quickly, that may not be possible. But I see it's a good idea to, you know, to consult on that and let people know what's happening. I agree.
Councillor Connor, I don't have an answer to your second question, unless Mr Hughes is going to volunteer one. I think it's something we'll have to get back to you about, but obviously it will be coming to Cabinet in the usual way.
I think it was published, but it's being updated.
Okay. Well, I think we'll look into it for you. Thanks. Members, I'm getting ahead of myself this evening because I've already asked you to agree twice, but I don't think there was ever any doubt we were going to agree the recommendations. Councillor Alban.
Thank you, Leader. If I can just make a point here that the collaboration between TDC and parish councils and town councils has already been undertaken by the waste recycling, etc. Even this lunchtime I had a meeting, it should have been all the town councils, but only Broadstairs turned up, which we resolved several issues there. And I made it clear to them, and I made it clear to all, if the parish or town council want to speak, want to talk to me about anything in relation to waste recycling or whatever else I'm doing in coastal, whatever, I'm always happy to come to a town council or parish meeting if I can. So I think from my point of view, and as I said this afternoon, it is very, very important, being the chair of Ramsgate Town Council, to ensure that the collaboration and the communication between the parish, town and Thanet District Council operates openly and clearly, and then we can work together. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing, whether it's a town council, parish council or Thanet District Council. So if we can work together, then that is the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. So one final time, you know what the recommendations are, we agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Try and do it in order for the future items. Item 6 is the adoption of the Westgate-on-Sea Neighbourhood Plan, which is also me. Under the Localism Act 2011, neighbourhood plans can be prepared by local communities and are led by town or parish councils or a neighbourhood forum in areas which do not have a town or parish council. If Thanet District Council adopts a neighbourhood plan, it has the same significance as other development plan documents such as the local plan. Westgate-on-Sea Town Council has prepared a neighbourhood plan which has been examined by an independent examiner, and a decision statement was issued by the council that the plan should progress to referendum as agreed by Cabinet on the 15th of June. The referendum took place on the 31st of August. The result was that 553 people voted for the neighbourhood plan and 135 voted against. As more than half of those who voted in favour of the neighbourhood plan, the plan now comes into force as part of the development plan, and the council must formally make, which means adopt, the plan within 8 weeks of the date of the referendum. I therefore propose the recommendations as set in the report, that is the Westgate-on-Sea neighbourhood plan, is recommended to a meeting of full council to make, that doesn't quite make sense, so I shall start it again. We recommend to a meeting of full council that the Westgate-on-Sea neighbourhood plan is made. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Yates. Any discussion? Members agree? Thank you. Item 7 is the Broadstairs Flood and Protection Scheme, which I believe is Councillor Alban.
It is moi. The Broadstairs Flood and Coast Protection Scheme is funded via the Environment Agency and local levy grant funding. The scheme is 100% grant funded, and the grant allocation is £880,000. The scheme is included in the 23-24 capital programme. The pier or jetty at Broadstairs was first constructed 250 years ago and plays a vital role in retaining and stabilising the beach. It is the beach in combination with the more recent concrete sea defences that protect the low-lying residential properties situated directly behind the beach. The scheme will reduce flood risk or flooding by the sea to properties on Harbour Street in Broadstairs and also to the rear of Viking Bay. With the effects of climate change causing sea level rise and increased intensity and regularity of storm events, the risk of doing nothing is that these low-lying properties will experience flooding more regularly. The jetty is an important beach control structure, and if damaged or lost, it would have the effect of narrowing the beach profile at Viking Bay, leading to the frequent flooding and damage to property, and would also allow cliff erosion to restart, threatening the promenade and assets behind. The scheme includes works to the facing blocks of the pier, repairs to the fisherman's slipway, repairs and improvements to the sea walls, repairs to the steps to the foreshore, resurfacing of the harbour car park, and the installation of floodgates for the use during predicted storm events. The scheme will improve the standard of flood defence from the current 1 in 10 years standard to 1 in 200 years standard. Planning permission for the scheme was granted in June this year. Tender documents have been prepared and the construction phase is likely to be programmed from April to June next year. This report seeks Cabinet approval to incur expenditure in relation to this scheme in exactly in excess of £250,000, which is making this a key decision and up to the value of the Environment Agency grant. I therefore propose acceptance, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Is there a seconder? Councillor Yates. Councillor Rogers, you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Leader. The report says it's fully funded by the grant, so why is there a need to incur further expenditure in the excess of 250,000? Thank you.
I don't think that's what it means, Councillor Rogers. I think what it means is that any decision to spend money over 250,000, wherever it comes from, has to come through Cabinet. And in this case, it's 880,000 or up to 880,000, which is coming through the Environment Agency. So there's no net outflow from the Council. Thank you. Okay, members, any discussion on this one? No? Okay, so you've heard the recommendation. Is that agreed? Agreed. Agreed, thank you. And we move on to number 8, which is the Viking Bay to Dumpton Gap seawall repair scheme.
A £406,000 grant has been awarded to deliver this project. The scheme focuses on a 1 to 100 metre length of sea wall between Preacher's Knoll at Viking Bay and to the end of the sea wall just to the south of Dumpton Gap. The sea wall here is 60 years old, and many of the structure components, such as the concrete apron blocks, wave return coping and concrete beam slabs, have become eroded by wave energy, tidal action and weathering, including freezing and thaw action. The Council has 11 miles of seawall, and such large-scale refurbishment projects are an important element in the maintenance programme for our existing coastal infrastructure. Without undertaking works of this nature, we would be in a position where the seawall and popular coastal promenade would in time need to be closed for the public on health and safety grounds. Furthermore, there would be a loss of fill material from within the seawall with a detrimental impact on our internationally designated coastline. This report seeks Cabinet's approval to incur expenditure in relation to this scheme in excess of £250,000, making this a key decision and up to the value of the Environment Agency grant. I propose, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Keane?
She wanted to get in.
Councillor Rogers, did you want to come in on this? No.
Okay. No, same one.
Thank you.
Same question.
Not to worry. Members, any discussion? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 9 is the Tenant and Leaseholder Services Annual Report. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Leader. Tonight, Cabinet is being asked to agree to an executive decision that involves the approval to publish the Tenant and Leaseholder Services Annual Report 2022-23. I continually promote the work of our housing team, and this annual report shows exactly why I do so. As a social housing provider, the tenant and leaseholder services need to produce an annual report to achieve regulatory compliance. This means that we have to provide relevant information that enables and supports tenants to scrutinise our performance. This is the second annual report that has been prepared by our team, and it is now ready for publication. And the clarity, accessibility, openness, and overall human approach clear throughout this publication sums up not only the professionalism, but also the hard work that our tenant and leaseholder team put into daily support and into supporting residents to understand more about our services, to put them in the strongest possible position to be actively involved, advocate, and work with us to deliver change. The contribution of our frankly wonderful tenant and leaseholder group is also apparent throughout this report. And again, this clearly demonstrates our continuing work towards creating a resident-centred housing service with community and service at its heart. I think it's very important to note that this is a holistic piece of work. The actions completed this year, the priorities made, the support provided to continually improve our service comes not only from officers, but also from residents, from our tenant and leaseholder group, from councillor feedback on issues and priorities. Everyone involved in housing, in whichever way, is valued and their contribution clear. The direct work which our tenant and leaseholder group did to not only explain how we could improve our communication and standard letters, but also to directly feed in and recommend responses is invaluable. Our routine communication is the foundation of our relationship with tenants, and it needs to be accessible, friendly and open. As such, tenant and leaseholder contribution is essential, but the work directly put in by tenants and leaseholders has to be recognised and commended. The external training and policy engagement exemplified by Tracy from our tenant and leaseholder group, with her involvement in the Tenant and Resident Engagement Conference in London, demonstrates tenant and leaseholder commitment to building a truly reflective and inclusive service, which, as she states, has residents at the heart of our housing policy. This is an essential corporate report, a legal requirement and a duty. But housing and our tenants and leaseholders have made it far more than that, and it is a genuinely engaging, informative and accessible document that not only clearly indicates what we do exceptionally well, but also shows residents exactly where we want to be and what we are working towards. Housing isn't just buildings, it is homes. It has a heart. There is nothing clinical or cold in it. It is not bricks or mortar. It is, or should be, a study and practice of the place we feel most safe, of the community we trust, of the people we love, and of the continual recognition of the importance of all of the above. And this document isn't about housing. It's about homes, and that is so much healthier than where we were before our in-house service. We provide quarterly performance reports to OSP and Cabinet. You will all be very familiar with them, and they provide essential context on the services that we provide, and are also subject to the same scrutiny by involved tenants and leaseholders. But our annual report gives a chance to take stock and look at not only our team's performance, but also explore the reality of our tenants' experiences, and exploring both resident and team stories with photos and case studies allows for a full and engaging study of what we do here, and also allows us to share times of joy and achievement, times of challenge, and times that are just plain unusual. It's not every day that we get to take a donkey to the 15th floor of Kennedy House for filming, and to be able to document everything that goes into life as a tenant and as a housing provider is priceless. Inclusivity is vital. Information means nothing if it isn't presented in an accessible way, and as well as publishing our report on the Council's website, we will also be producing a plain text version that can be read by a web reader, and the web page will include an equality statement that invites people to request a printed document or information in another format. And hard copies will be taken to community events to take away to ensure that access remains at the core of our decisions and actions. Our tenants and leaseholders are at the heart of all that we do. As such, it is only right that this report has already been reviewed by our tenant and leaseholder group, and it has now also been scrutinised by OSP before coming to Cabinet for approval to publish. This document is not about houses, although it discusses them. It is not about statistics, although it includes them. It is not about information, although it provides it comprehensively. This document is about homes, those who live in them, those who help to maintain them, those who build relationships to support residents, and those tenants who go the extra mile to support other tenants with their knowledge and commitment to always making our service stronger. I am incredibly proud of Sally, of the tenant and leaseholder team, and our tenant and leaseholder group. Without the concerted efforts that you all make, our service would not be able to be the holistic and reflective presence that it is. And what is produced here is genuinely a community effort. Thank you to everyone who makes this service what it is, and thank you to everyone who has enabled us to share what we do so effectively. I am privileged to work with and alongside you, and I will never stop saying it. I move the recommendation to publish the annual report on the Council's website. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead, for your typically comprehensive introduction to what I think is I think it's a very informative and well presented report which contains a lot of good news and is usefully accessible to the tenants as well as the council, which is obviously, as you've said, important. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Yates. Councillor Bayford, I'm not sure Councillor White has left you much to say, but I'm sure you'll find something. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead, for the report. Yes, it's just an update on progress, really. I was very pleased to hear that the recycling scheme introduced at Trove and Kennedy House in Ramsgate has been well received and is successful. I know that many of our tenants are keen to participate in schemes to make our planet greener. Has a similar scheme planned for Royal Harbour been implemented yet? And when can we expect to hear whether or not it has or will be started at Brunswick Court, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bayford. We're very keen that residents in our blocks have exactly the same access to recycling as any other resident would have. And you're right, at Kennedy and Trove, it has been very well received, and the last community event that I attended confirmed that. I'm happy to pass over for the progress on the individual projects. It's up to Councillor Alban if he'd like to come in first.
In relation to the recycling, I mean, that's something that when I was last in power here, I instigated to get to trial it at Trove and Kennedy, and it's certainly something that I would and our service would like to happen, and to go across all tower blocks across Thanet, and yeah, I welcome it. Welcome it.
Hello. Yes. Hi. Yes, we are really pleased the way it's worked at Trove and Kennedy, and we are looking to roll that out further to the other tower blocks. But also we have quite successfully rolled out recycling to some of our medium-rise blocks as well, and we're looking to do that across the HRA stock, seeking out areas where we can do that, educating and putting in recycling.
Thank you. And of course, that's not just important to the residents in those blocks. It's also important to the council's recycling figures, because we need to improve our recycling rates, and that's something that we will be focusing on, Mr. Humber, won't we? Thank you. Okay, members, any other comments? No. So we're asked to authorise publishing the tenant leaseholder service report to the council's website, which is an unusual kind of decision. Members agree? Thank you. Item 10 is the annual Treasury Management Review 2022-23, which is Councillor Yates.
Thank you. This report summarises a backward look on our Treasury management activities for 2022-23. The figures remain provisional because our 21-22 and our 2022 and 23 accounts have not yet been audited and are therefore subject to change until the audit is completed. Firstly, I'm pleased to report that all our activities operated by officers were within the limits agreed by members, although there was a minor error by one of our financial providers which was picked up and reported in our mid-year report to Council. The other key messages that I've summarised are below. The Council's gross debt, also called the borrowing position at 31st of March 2023, was 19 million. The Council's underlying need to borrow to finance its capital expenditure, also called the capital financing requirement, the CFR, was 52.2 million at 31st of March 23. Therefore, it can be reported that the Council has complied with the requirement to hold less gross debt than its CFR, which is the capital financing requirement. The maximum debt held by the Council during 2022 to 23 was 20.2 million, which is well within the statutory authorised limit of 96 million. At 31st of March 23, the Council's investment balance was 60.6 million. A marked reduction in general fund capital receipts over the last 2 years is also highlighted in the report, which has implications for funding for the future capital programme. I move the recommendations as contained within this report.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. Is there a seconder? I'm going to have Councillor Duckworth this time. Councillor Yates, you might want to take this opportunity. There's a lot of discussion in the media about councils issuing Section 114 notices and basically running out of money. And I quite often see speculation that from residents that sort of situation might occur at Thanet. Do you think there's any risk of that happening at Thanet based on the information you've got?
We are in a very fortunate position, actually, compared with the county councils, and for the first time in numerous years, we're not looking to make significant budget cuts in the upcoming budget, and so I can categorically say, yeah, we're not anywhere near Section 114 notice currently.
I think Mr. Blundell will stay quiet on that one for this evening. But I just think it's worth saying that we do get all kinds of sensationalist comments about the council's financial position, and whilst local government finance is very difficult for everybody, we are not in a crisis in Thanet, and I think we need to say that and make that clear. Members, it's been moved and seconded. The recommendations are. Does anybody wish to say anything else? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And we move on to item 11, which is the 2022-23 provisional outturn.
Thank you. This report sets out the provisional year-end position for the General Fund, Housing Revenue Account and Capital Programme for the year ending 31st March 23. As referred to previously, the figures remain provisional because our 21 to 22 and 22 to 23 accounts have not yet been audited and are therefore subject to change until that audit is completed. The key financial messages are that our General Fund net revenue spending was approximately £2 million over budget. However, this was in line with our expectations as reported in previous monitoring reports. The overspend can be fully funded from the residual COVID grant funding and additional business rate monies, as indicated at 3.1 of this report. 3.2 of this report identifies the potential to make two separate contributions to reserves. Firstly, to set up and contribute £58,000 to a new digital communications reserve to receive and allocate funds as contribution towards future projects. Secondly, to make a one-off contribution of £400,000 to reserves from the underspend on capital interest and principal payments, which will be available to be drawn down in 23 to 24 to fund the capital investments for toilets, which I think everyone's got an interest in there. Due to an administrative error, though, this report, which I missed, still shows the recommendations as presented to our corporate management team. So the recommendations should read as follows. The Cabinet notes the following: the provisional outturn position for the General Fund, the provisional outturn position for the General Fund Capital, the provisional outturn position for the Housing Revenue Account, and the provisional outturn position for the Housing Revenue Account Capital. And number two, that Cabinet agrees the following: that Cabinet agrees the provisional to the proposed reserve movements as identified at section 3.1 and 3.2 to this report. That Cabinet agrees the slippage in the General Fund Capital Programme as identified in section 6 of this report, and the Cabinet agrees the slippage in the HRA budgets as identified in section 8 to this report. So I move those revised recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Alban, seconded. Any discussion, members? No. Are those recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And we move on to item 12, which is Councillor Yates again. Budget Monitoring 2023-24, report number 1.
Thank you. This is the first budget monitoring report for this current year. We are forecasting an overspend of just over £489,000 against our General Fund revenue budget. There remains pressure on homelessness, and in response to this, the Council has reviewed and is delivering its homelessness strategy action plan. We are regularly monitoring the level of homelessness and have been recruited more staff and commissioning new services to address the increased need for this support. Other financial pressures are detailed in the report, but include additional agency staffing requirements in the waste and recycling service, potential increased costs associated with seaweed removal, as well as income shortfalls. Moving to our General Fund Capital Programme, it is showing a substantial underspend. This is in part due to the phasing and timing of a number of grant-funded projects, some of which will be reprofiled and slipped into later years of this programme. I'm also pleased to report that the HRA is forecast to come in under budget by £199,000. Finally, there are a number of budget adjustments that are detailed within the report that are recommended for Cabinet's approval. I move the recommendations contained within the report.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. Is there a seconder? Councillor Keane. And Councillor Davis, you wanted to speak on this item, I think.
Thank you, Leader. I think it's to be commended. What I want to say, and the question that I have, relates to Annex 1 in the General Fund Capital Programme. Firstly, it's excellent news to hear and have confirmation that the previous Conservative administration left you with good funding and a good stable opportunity, Rob, so congratulations. What I would like to ask is related to several items in the General Fund Capital Project, one of which we're coming back to Ramsgate Port, berth 4 and 5 replacement. Could I just confirm, because there's a lot of confusion over what's been spent on this, and the budget has 249 allocated, only 117 spent. Is that the case, that that money has not been spent and that's still in the budget and the berth is complete? That's my first question. Following on from that, an urgent decision was given in February to spend £60,000, which we were told at ONS, I believe it was for electrical work to do with this berth. The question remains whether it had electrical facilities previously. However, in the capital programme report, there's reference to £60,000, the same figure, for a transformer. Are we paying an additional £60,000 on top of £250,000 to support a commercial enterprise that isn't even using the berth? That's the other part of my question. And final little one is there's 105 allocated for the sluice gates. What's happening with those? Because they're not working, obviously, and haven't been used since 1980. So I wonder if you could clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I'm not sure all of that really fits under the budget monitoring report number 1, but we'll exercise some discretion. I'm not sure that Councillor Yates is equipped to talk about sluice gates. We might pass that over to Mr. Humber, but Councillor Yates.
Yeah, thank you. So the report makes clear that on berths 4 and 5 to start with, there has already been spend of £117,000 versus the 251,000 budgeted for 2023-24. And I've forgotten what was your question in this. Was it just that
it's what's actually been spent, Rob, if you could, because there's 251,000 there. According to these figures, up to June, only 107, or only, but 117 have been spent. If so, why? Because this project has had its funding increased on several occasions. So why was that done if it's been delivered for half what's on the sheet? And why didn't it include the 60,000 for the transformer when that's in the spec that was on the original specification? Why has that come up as this late? Because this council is still paying Brett's compensation for a berth that has been sitting there for a year. Why are they not using it? We're still paying, and we're paying 60,000 to support them on top of everything.
Yeah. Yep, that's understood. I don't know the exact detail, but I will pass over to Mr. Humber to specify the exact timing on some of those payments and also the transformer question. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. Sorry, it's complex, but...
Okay, yeah, thanks for your question, Councillor Davis. So the berth 4-5 project, this is spend to date. The final account for the project is yet to be completed. There will be more spend, and I think it's something that we need to update on when that has been, when that final account has been completed, and then there'll be a figure that can be reported. So I think that's the reason for that. You mentioned about a transformer. Well, go back to the berth. The electrical works have been completed. The berth was a new berth put on station. It's had a previous life, but it's a new berth put on station at Ramsgate without any electrical installation. So that was the electrical works to put power and lighting and the navigation lighting and the things that you need on a berth. The Ramsgate Port transformer is a separate project. It's not specifically related to the Brett's project. It's about Ramsgate. The Port of Ramsgate's got 3 substations and transformer facilities to bring the voltage down and just distribute it around the site. And the last question was, I think, about the sluice gates, which is not the same as the flat gate, mitre gates or lift bridge site. This sluice gate is, there used to be 7 sets of sluices which, with penstock valves, which allowed you to empty the inner marina. This is about the sealing of the last set of those that haven't been sealed. So it's a separate project.
If I could just ask why they're being sealed, because they're part of the Smeaton's design of the harbour, which is supposed to keep the gullies clear. If they're being sealed, we're doomed to having to dredge in an inappropriate location. Those gullies are part of the integral operation of the harbour.
Councillor Davis, I think, well, let Mr Humble respond to that if he wants.
Sorry, Leader,
This is a financial report, not a
no, my apologies,
harbour report, and I think there will be other opportunities to discuss the Port and Harbour, and I'm sure you'll be joining me in those discussions.
Absolutely, and thank you for your indulgence, and sorry if I've gone a bit off track there.
Do you want to add then, Mr Humble?
Well, mate, I mean, I'm happy to talk to Councillor Davis about the reasons for that scheme, but it's about improving the resilience. They are already sealed, but in a nature that needs to be made more permanent. So they are already sealed, like the other 6 sets of sluices, but perhaps happy to talk about that. Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Right, thank you. Members, any discussion over and above berths 4 and 5 or in relation to this report? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. The members agreed with the recommendations. Thank you. We will move on to item 13, which is the Department for Levelling Up Houses and Communities Funding Updated Simplification Pathfinder Pilot. I think we can indulge you, Councillor Bainbridge. Thank you. So this is for me to introduce. This report comes to Cabinet at the end of a process which has seen the Council lobby central government for simplification, and we've been making requests because we have 3 separate capital programmes which funds have been awarded. As members know, they are the Future High Streets Fund, the Town Deal and the Levelling Up Fund projects, which together total over £50 million for projects across Ramsgate and Margate. We take as an indication that we have been one of the more successful local authorities in the country, that we have been selected as one of 10 local authorities in England and one of 2 in the South East to take part in this simplification Pathfinder project. It's important to note that it is about governance and managing reporting back to central government. It's not about starting again in terms of deciding where the funding should be spent. The projects themselves have already been agreed. They've been through the formal government approvals that are included in this pilot programme. So the key elements of this Pathfinder is that there will be one single allocation of money across the portfolio of projects. However, the funding will be managed within the Council's processes on a project-by-project basis. So the allocations to each project are as they were. It's simply that the Council has more flexibility in the way that it reports and manages them. There will be a single set of outcomes and outputs covering the full portfolio of activity, and these are outlined in Annex 1. And these are profiled across 5 new intervention themes: enhancing connectivity, unlocking and enabling commercial development, strengthening the visitor and service economy, improving the quality of life of residents, and employment and education. The output and outcome indicators are very similar to those that were already in the Town Deal and Levelling Up Fund programmes, which made consolidating the targets across the whole programme easy. The reporting will be streamlined, so there will now be one 3-monthly RAG report, red, amber, green, focusing on spend and progress, and one 6-monthly delivery report, which we hope will significantly reduce the administrative burden. Improvements to the change management will mean that we will not be queuing with other local authorities in an 8 to 12 week approval process for any project adjustments. Approval from DLUC will only be required if we wish to make what they call a material change, which is considered to be over £5 million between the projects. And we will have one main contact in the DLUC area team for discussions about the pilot. Central government requires the council, as the accountable body for this funding, to establish a consolidated governance structure which will be a strategic oversight board, and we're required to have certain people on the board, including all levels of government, county, districts and town councils, the MPs for the area, businesses and or investors and communities representatives. To be clear, this isn't a decision-making board. It will support the council in reviewing delivery, budgets, timescales, risks and the monitoring and evaluation process. As the accountable body, any decisions made in relation to this programme will follow existing council processes and procedures, including overview and scrutiny, with Cabinet being the ultimate decision maker. Having improved contact with DLUC will help us with our broader engagement with them. We also welcome the fact that through our engagement with the department, they've concluded that we can and should be part of this pilot. Our understanding is that the outputs will be used to inform DLUC on how they engage with local authorities in the future on these capital programmes in order to understand how they better deploy and manage the funding. And one thing that I wanted to say in particular is it was clear to me that as soon as this came forward that there could be concern that Ramsgate funds would go to Margate and Margate funds would go to Ramsgate. We are not going to do that. Were we to propose to do that, it will be a decision that will go through the council's processes and everybody would have the opportunity to comment on that. But that's certainly not the intention, and I think the two towns, people in the two towns would need to understand that. So the recommendations are to note the details of the submitted investment plan on the basis of the profile and spend and delivery against the intervention themes, approve the disbanding of the Margate Town Deal Board in order to set up new and relevant governance arrangements for the Simplification Pathfinder pilot, approve the recommendation to set up a new partnership board with final recruitment of board members to be in consultation with the leader, and approve the projects being included and delivered through the new amalgamated Simplification Pathfinder pilot as identified in section 4.1, which is all a bit of a mouthful considering that what we're trying to do is make things simpler. So those are the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Alban. So I have a number of members, I think. Go back to that page. Well, perhaps I don't. I just have Councillor Bainbridge.
Thank you, Leader. So my question is that who will be sitting on the partnership board, and considering the need for all councillors to understand any changes that may be made within each award, whether that be the Levelling Up Fund or the Margate Town Deal, would you consider ensuring that there are representation on the board from all political parties?
I think I can confirm that there will be representation on the board from all political parties. Over and above the MPs. So, yeah, I don't think there's any intention to reduce the political participation on the existing panels. Let's put it like that. So, both Labour and Conservative councillors, members, elected members who are not MPs, will be represented on the new board. And we haven't finalised the makeup of it completely, but I'm sure. I think Ms Askew wants to come in.
Thanks. So within the report, it identifies the representatives that need to be included, so all levels of government, and then we will have 2 business representatives and 2 community representatives, and the intention is that they will be larger organisations that understand about spending big sums of money, how you manage it, how you manage risk, being able to challenge and ensure that we're sticking to timescales, etc. So those organisations will be approached, and we're just working through a kind of short list of those at the moment. But the ambition is that they either are broadly Thanet based, or we have one for each town, and then that will be approved through the leader.
I'll just ask another question, just a quick one, based on what Louise said. How are you coming to the shortlist for your organisations to participate in this?
So, as I know you're aware, we don't have an awful lot of large businesses and or community groups in the district, so it'll be a relatively short list to start with. And from the experience of the team, we'll be working through those, identifying the ones that we think have the best opportunity to offer in terms of the board, and then we'll have a discussion with those. As it is only 4 members, the thought of doing a call out was, it would take too much time, and we need to make sure that we move into this next phase quite quickly as we are starting to move forward in terms of delivery of the projects.
Right, and as I've allowed Councillor Bainbridge to ask a question, I'm going to allow Councillor Bright to as well.
Thank you, Leader. I raised this in the overview and scrutiny panel on, when was it, Tuesday, and I'm going to raise it again. I think I personally would like some to have agreed a certain regularity of reporting of these projects. I don't think it's going to be enough for elected members who sit on either overview and scrutiny or governance and audit. I'm the Vice Chair of Governance and Audit as well, to receive reports on progress every sort of 2 or 3 months. So if we can get more regular updates, that would be really good.
I think in terms of formal updates through the Council's committee process, Ms Askew and I have talked about this, and I think we see a need to be reporting back to members, but we also have to be realistic about the role of overview and scrutiny, which cannot be to review the delivery of every project individually. So we are going to come up with a reporting format which we hope will satisfy overview and scrutiny. But as we said earlier on, the point is that the decisions will be made through the council processes, and the council processes have opportunities for challenge and interrogation, and ultimately the decisions are made in public at meetings like this. So I think we talk a lot. I mean, we mustn't confuse overview and scrutiny with the role of portfolio holders who are there to challenge officers and make sure that delivery is happening, and in some respects the role of other members is to challenge the portfolio members to make sure they're doing their job. But this is a very major programme. It's a very significant issue for the council. It's a very big opportunity for the council. There's just a couple of things I wanted to add. I've seen people talk about slippage in delivery. Well, clearly there hasn't been a slippage in delivery which has taken place since May, but there are some fundamental things about the way these projects, these funds were structured, which has led us down to where we are currently. I happen to be talking to members from 2 other Kent authorities who've got Levelling Up Fund awards this morning, and both of them were saying, although they're not part of the Pathfinder project as far as I'm aware, that they won't be able to deliver before 2026. And I think that it's a common issue that district councils have not been fully equipped to manage the level of capital funding which they've been awarded. And this partly flows from the fact that the funding system is haphazard and unpredictable, which means that we can't retain the staff that we would need to deliver these schemes completely. And that isn't just about project management, it's about the procurement process, it's about legal issues. So what we've had to do as a council, and obviously the previous administration was involved in this, is gear up in order to be able to deliver these projects. So whilst we welcome the fact that we've got more flexibility in the new arrangements, and we welcome the fact that there's actually an extra year allowed, that doesn't mean to say that we'll be delivering everything in March 2026, and there will be delivery before that, and there is work going on at pace, and people will see evidence. But I think, to be honest with you, the original timescales set by the government were unrealistic, and that's what we're seeing, not just in Thanet, but across the piece. And I don't think if people were to look in detail at what's happening in other authorities, that they'd find that there's a marked difference in what they've been able to deliver to what we've been able to deliver. But this is it's an exciting time for all of us, and I'm certainly looking forward to the outputs, and I know that everybody is, and I'm convinced that we're going to have some really exciting developments over the next few years. Okay. Members. Okay, so there's no discussion, so that's agreed, members, is it? Agreed. Thank you. And we move on to item 14, which is Coastal Zone Maintenance Contract.
Yeah, thank you. Thanet has, as I said previously, Thanet has 16 miles of coastline with 11 miles of sea walls. Our coastal infrastructure also includes upper promenades, railings, steps, bridges, groins, slipways and cliff-facing walls. All of these assets are maintained via the term maintenance contract. The existing 5-year maintenance contract is due to expire in January 2024. A new contract proposed with a 3-year term and a 2-year extension option. This is base budget revenue funded work and is informed by regular detailed inspections of the coastline undertaken by our technical services team. Without this contract, we would be unable to react to urgent work or routine repair work to ensure that we get the maximum working life out of our coastal infrastructure. We would also be open to an increased insurance liability as a result of unresolved defects on the coastline. The budgetary value for this work each year is £244,000, but there are occasions when there is an advantage to delivering other maintenance work via this contract, and the contract value is therefore set at £300,000 per annum, or 1.5 million over 5 years. This report seeks Cabinet approval to incur expenditure in relation to this maintenance contract in excess of £250,000 over the full duration of the contract term, making this a key decision. I recommend the recommendation. Recommend the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. Is there a seconder? Councillor King? Roger, did you want to speak on this one?
Go on. Steve. Sorry.
Leader. As grants were awarded for Broadstairs Flood and Coast Protection Scheme and Viking Bay to Dumpton Gap Sea Wall Repairs Scheme, why is there no grant for the Coastal Zone Maintenance Contract? Did we apply for a grant?
Mr Humber.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers, for your question. The reason is that this is a maintenance contract, so maintenance is revenue funded, so the Environment Agency's Flood and Coastal Erosion Fund is about capital improvement. So the two schemes at Broadstairs are capital schemes. They are large schemes that deliver improvements. Our maintenance programme can only be funded via revenue money, and it is, historically that is always funded via, our TDC's own budgets. Okay.
Any discussion, members? Okay. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 15 is the LED street lighting conversion project, which is Councillor Al.
Thank you. I didn't even know I had lighting, but here we go. The LED street lighting conversion project is included in the 23-24 capital programme with a budget allocation of £283,000. A contribution from Broadstairs and St Peter's Town Council of up to an additional £50,000 has also been secured to undertake works at Victoria Parade and on the Broadstairs Harbour, including the provision of festoon lights. The council is responsible for approximately 500 street lights around the district. This project will result in improvements to approximately 200 of those, with works included either a new LED lamp or an entire LED fitting, a new column or a combination of these elements. The project is well aligned with the council's net zero strategy. The conversion to LED technology will not only reduce electricity consumption, it will also reduce the number of required maintenance visits to replace fouled lamps. A specification for the project has been prepared and the works are anticipated to start in January 2024 with completion planned by July 2024. This report seeks Cabinet approval to incur expenditure in relation to the capital projects in excess of £250,000 and up to the allocated capital programme budget, making this a key decision.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Duckworth. And I'm afraid, Councillor Bright, I can't resist making the observation that it's entirely appropriate that you should speak on an item about lighting. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, so no question here, just a comment really. Over the summer, Broadstairs and St Peter's Town Council began work on our first ever cohesive forward plan of projects. Not quite sure what they've been doing for the past 50 or so years, but there you go. This plan is going to set out the council's agenda for the next 4 years. The plan itself was based on 3 strategic pillars, and the leader kindly came to the town forum. It's designed to foster a cleaner, safer and kinder Broadstairs. On the 28th of July, the town council held a forum attended by members of the public and representatives of over 30 community groups, including the leader. We use this forum as an opportunity to learn about the issues that really matter to the community. And the faulty lighting on the seafront, particularly around Victoria Gardens and Parade, was regularly mentioned as something that makes people feel unsafe in their surroundings, to the extent that many people avoid this area after dark. This project is therefore of great importance to the residents of Broadstairs and St Peter's and to the town, and the town council was delighted to approve a contribution to the project to ensure delivery before next summer. In restoring light to the seafront, this project makes Broadstairs safer, delivering on our promises to the people of Broadstairs and St Peter's. Although apparently net zero isn't worth worrying about anymore, by using environmentally friendly low energy LED fixtures, this project helps Broadstairs and St Peter's become kinder, again delivering on our promises to the people of Broadstairs and St Peter's. So as a new councillor, I'm proud to be part of this Labour administration that continues to deliver these important projects and to have a positive impact on the lives of our residents. So thank you very much, everyone who's involved in this.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. And certainly I was impressed by the enthusiasm and the ideas of the groups that you had represented at your meeting in Broadstairs, which I attended. And I look forward to seeing further outcomes from the discussions, because it all seemed quite constructive and sensible to me. Councillor Alban.
Just come back on that, on what Councillor Bright has said. I'm just pleased to see that you recognised our leader as a community group. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I preferred my joke about that Christian's name, sorry. Okay, members, any discussion? Councillor Keane.
Not discussion really, just to recognise that I think, you know, with our aims to reduce emissions and our importance of safety for the area, this is a really good initiative that I'm pleased to see we're working on, and both issues are very important to our residents, so I think they will appreciate it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keane. Members, it's been moved and seconded. Are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And finally, item 16, the Thanet District Council electricity supply tender. Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Leader. This report seeks authority of the Council to enter into a new contract for the supply of electricity to 264 sites within our portfolio. The cost of the new contract can be met within the approved budget. The Council is required to ensure best value for money when procuring its contracts, and as such the Council is required to re-procure its electricity supply contract before the renewal date of 1st of October 2023. The value of the estimated contract is detailed in the report and exceeds £750,000 and is therefore a key decision. It should be noted that the electricity supply will be provided on a renewable tariff for the time of the contract signing, therefore aligns with the Council's net zero strategy. I move the recommendations contained within the report.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Whitehead? Any comments, members? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. That concludes the business for tonight's meeting. I declare the meeting closed at 8:10 and the live stream of the meeting will now end. Thank you.